I circled the date on the calendar 3 weeks in advance. A small gold star next to it made the box feel hopeful, not desperate. This Thanksgiving would be different. Not the kind spent watching someone else carve a turkey at someone else's table. This time, I'd be the host, the planner, the reason they gathered. The restaurant I chose sat on a quiet corner of downtown Charlottesville, tucked between a florist and a wine shop. It was warm inside with brick walls and soft lights, just intimate enough to feel personal. I booked the private dining room, ordered place cards, and pre-selected the menu: roast duck, heirloom stuffing, 3 types of pie. They'd like it, or at least they'd show up. I bought thick ivory stationery and wrote the invitations by hand. Dear Mom and Dad. I wrote, even though the words never felt right. I wrote to May and Colton too, shorter notes, simpler language. Grandpa Henry's card was different. I didn't need to explain anything to him. Just the date, time, and at the bottom a small line in pencil. Please come. I mailed them all the next day. The woman at the post office complimented the ink I used. Forest green, almost black in certain light. In the days that followed, I kept the receipts in a drawer by my desk, checked my email more than I should have, smoothed out the seating chart again and again. Every little detail was a chance to be visible, to be counted, to be remembered. On Thanksgiving morning, I ironed my dress twice and left the house early. The sun was barely up, but I didn't mind. I wanted everything to be perfect by the time they arrived. The dining room was already set when I arrived. White linens, silver cutlery, water glasses lined up in perfect symmetry. The candles flickered like they'd been waiting, like maybe they believed this would be the night something shifted. I placed name cards at each seat. Victor, Rosalind, Colton. May, Henry, and Mira at the head, not out of ego, but because the hostess told me that's where hosts usually sit. The waitress brought out the first basket of warm bread, and I nodded politely, folding my hands on the table. It was only 5:15. I told them 6, but still I thought maybe someone would come early. Maybe Henry. I checked my phone, then checked it again. I refreshed my email. Nothing. At 6:05, I walked out to the lobby and stood under the amber chandelier. The maitre d' gave me a kind smile I couldn't return. At 6:20, I stepped outside. The air was colder than I'd expected. I dialed Rosalind's number. The phone rang twice. "Oh, Mira," she said. Her voice was casual, not surprised. "We're already at Colton's. Your foster dad's not feeling great, so we decided it'd be easier this way." In the background, I heard the unmistakable clang of dishes being served. Glasses clinking. Someone laughing. May's voice, maybe. Colton's deeper one chiming in. "I see," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'm sure you'll understand," she added before hanging up. I stared at my phone for a while. Not angry. Just still. I went back inside and took my seat at the table for 6. The bread was cooling. The candles burned lower. When the waitress returned, she paused, looking at the empty chairs. "Should I wait before serving?" she asked softly. "No," I said. "Go ahead." I waited a few more minutes, though I knew no one was coming. I glanced at the empty chairs again, as if they might fill themselves if I stared hard enough. Then I folded the menu closed and signaled to the waitress. "Just 1 plate, please," I said. My voice didn't tremble, but my hands did. I pressed them to my lap. She gave me a soft nod, didn't ask questions, and walked away with the menu. I was grateful for that, for not being asked if someone was running late, or if I wanted to wait a little longer. Around me, the dining room had filled. Couples, families, friends. Everyone leaned in close over their meals. I caught pieces of conversation, someone talking about their promotion, someone else teasing their dad for overcooking last year. It was all warmth and easy rhythm. I watched them without meaning to. I envied how natural they looked, as if belonging was just another part of the holiday. The food arrived: roasted duck with rosemary, just sage stuffing, and glazed carrots. Everything I had chosen with them in mind. I cut a piece and tried to eat, but the bite was dry in my mouth. I forced myself to chew. I stared at the seat that said Victor, then Rosalind, then Colton. I imagined them eating something similar at Colton's table, maybe not as refined, but warmer, louder, surrounded by people who didn't have to try to be wanted. My fork scraped the edge of the plate. I took another bite. It was better not to taste it too much. I kept my face calm, kept my hands steady as long as I could. But something gave when I reached for my water. The glass clinked too hard against the table. My hand pulled back. I folded it with the other. Across the room, a boy laughed so hard he knocked over a cup. His mother just smiled and cleaned it up with a napkin, easy and soft. I looked down at my plate. "Is everything all right?" the waitress asked gently. "Yes," I said. "It's perfect." I was folding my napkin when I heard the door open again. I didn't look up right away. By then, I'd trained myself not to hope. The sound of new arrivals had become background noise, other people being met, hugged, pulled into warmth. Then I heard his voice. "Sorry I'm late, Pumpkin." I turned. Grandpa Henry stood in the entry, his old wool coat dusted with wind. His gait had slowed since last year, but his smile hadn't. It softened the hard shell I hadn't realized I'd been wearing all evening. He pulled out the chair beside me and sat down without needing permission. "You saved me a seat," he said, glancing at the name card I'd written in ink that matched the others. "Of course," I said, trying to steady my breath. The waitress appeared again, this time more relaxed. "Would you like a plate as well, sir?" "Just coffee," he said gently. "I came for company, not courses." She disappeared and we sat in the glow of the candles I'd nearly blown out. He didn't comment on the empty seats. Didn't ask where the others were. He just looked at me like he already knew. Then he reached into his coat pocket and slid a worn envelope across the table. "I was going to wait," he said, "but maybe waiting's done more harm than good." I looked at the envelope, its flap, yellowed the edges soft. "What is it?" He leaned back and folded his hands. "It's time you knew the truth, Mira. About who you are, about where you came from." My fingers hovered above the paper. My heart began to thud like it recognized something I didn't yet understand. "It's all in there," he said, quieter now. "I think you're ready." I opened the flap carefully, as if anything too sudden might tear whatever was inside. The photo came out first. It was old, maybe from the 90s, slightly faded edges, soft. A woman stood in front of a white railing with autumn trees behind her. Blonde hair pulled back, sharp cheekbones, and eyes, my eyes. The color, the shape, even the tilt of her brow when she smiled. It was like looking at the parts of myself I never saw in Rosalind's mirror. I turned the photo over. In Grandpa's handwriting, Clara, 23 years old. Beneath the photo, a business card. White, simple, clean serif font. Clara Whitmore, founder and CEO, Whitmore Design Group, Seattle, WA. And finally, a letter. Folded in thirds. I hesitated, then unfolded it with both hands. "Dear Mira, if you're reading this, then Henry has decided it's time. I've written and rewritten this letter more times than I can count, never knowing if it would reach you, but I've never stopped hoping. I was young when I had you barely out of college. My family didn't approve of your father, and when they found out I was pregnant, they cut me off. I was alone, broke, scared, and I made the hardest decision of my life." I stopped there, my eyes stinging. Grandpa reached across the table and rested his hand over mine. "I knew your mother before all of it," he said. "She was strong, kind, too young to face what she had to. She came to me when she had nowhere else to go." I looked back down at the letter. "I asked Henry to help place you with someone stable. I never imagined they'd keep me away. I never imagined they wouldn't tell you. I've been looking for you for years, Mira, just hoping you'd want to know me. I didn't realize I was gripping the page until it started to crinkle under my hands." "She's in Seattle," Grandpa said, "and she's still waiting." Grandpa let me sit in silence for a while. I read the letter twice. The second time slower, like I was learning a language I'd once forgotten. The handwriting was graceful. She didn't beg. She didn't justify. She just told the truth. She came to me when she was 6 months along. Grandpa said, no job, no place to stay. Her parents wouldn't return her calls. I let her sleep on my couch, helped her get through the rest of the pregnancy. She asked me to find a safe home for you. She thought that was the most selfless thing she could do. I stared at the last line of the letter. "I love you. I always have." "Clara, I thought Victor and Rosalind could give you a better life," Grandpa continued. "They were settled. They had a house. They'd been trying to have kids. I thought I was giving you a family, but I was wrong about them. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. He kept going. They agreed quickly. Too quickly, maybe. Clara signed the papers. I thought they'd raise you with love, with pride. But the first time I visited and saw how Rosalind spoke to you like you were an obligation, I knew something was off. I tried to say something. She said, "We're doing our duty." That word stuck with me. I felt something click into place, a quiet truth I'd never been able to name. I hadn't grown up resented. I'd grown up owed. Clara never stopped searching, he said. When she built her company out west, she hired people just to follow adoption records. Most were sealed, yours included. But last year, she tracked me down through an old church listing. I made her a promise that night if you were ready, I'd give you the letter. I folded the page and slipped it back into the envelope. I didn't know what to do with it yet, but I knew I wasn't going to throw it away. She's not asking for anything, Grandpa added. Just a chance. And maybe for you to decide what comes next. I didn't tell Grandpa I was going. I needed to do it alone. The drive to Sycamore Lane was short, but it stretched long inside me. Every stoplight gave me a chance to turn around. I didn't. Their house looked the same, fresh paint-trimmed hedges, the porch swing still creaking in the breeze. I parked across the street, took a deep breath, and walked to the door. May's car was in the driveway. Colton's old truck, too. They were all home. Rosalind opened the door. Her expression froze for a second, then settled into something polite. "Mira, what a surprise. I need to speak with all of you," I said. She hesitated but opened the door wider. I stepped inside. Victor was in his usual chair, the news playing low on the TV. May was at the table with a cup of tea, Colton leaning against the kitchen counter, scrolling through his phone. I stood in the middle of the room. I know about Clara. Silence fell like a dropped plate. "Clara Whitmore," I said louder. "My mother, the woman who gave birth to me, the one who asked Grandpa to find me a family." Rosalind's mouth twitched. "We took you in. Don't rewrite history." "I'm not rewriting anything," I said calmly. "You gave me shelter, not love. You gave me food, not belonging." Victor shifted in his chair but didn't speak. "You didn't fail me," I said. "You just never saw me. And I don't need to keep waiting for you to." Colton scoffed. May looked away. I turned to Rosalind. "Thank you for the roof. I'll take it from here." I walked out without waiting for a reply. My heels echoed down the steps. The air outside felt sharper but lighter somehow. As I closed the car door behind me, I didn't cry. I didn't even look back. By the time I reached Grandpa's, I knew exactly what I was going to do next. The plane touched down in Seattle just after noon. The city stretched gray and misted beneath the clouds, its skyline unfamiliar, but not unfriendly. Grandpa had offered to come with me, but I told him I needed this first meeting to be mine. I arrived early at the cafe near Pike Place, the one Clara had suggested. Small, tucked into a corner with old brick walls and warm lighting. I chose a table by the window. The cup of chamomile tea in front of me had gone cold twice by the time the door opened again. She stepped in slowly, scanning the room. Her hair was tied back her coat neat and long, but what struck me first immediately were her eyes. Mine. Or maybe mine were hers. When our eyes met, she paused. Her lips parted as if words had rushed forward but collided in her throat. I stood. She walked toward me measured and cautious, as if afraid I might disappear if she moved too quickly. When she reached me, she stopped and whispered, "Can you forgive me for letting you grow up feeling unloved?" I didn't answer right away. I couldn't. My throat was tight, but not with anger. Not even sadness. Just the weight of something I'd carried too long finally shifting. So I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around her. She was warm, slightly trembling. Her hands clung to my back like she'd waited years to touch something real. "I'm here now," I whispered into her shoulder. She pulled back, eyes wet but steady. "You look just like him, but your voice, that's mine." We sat and talked for hours, nothing structured. No big speeches, just simple truths traded gently across the table. She told me about design school, about the business she built from her garage, about how she never stopped looking even when everyone told her to let it go. I told her about the attic bedroom, about the Thanksgiving that never happened, about Grandpa's quiet loyalty. When we stood to leave, she asked if I had dinner plans. I didn't. So I followed her out into the Seattle evening, the sound of gulls overhead, her hand light on my shoulder. Clara's penthouse overlooked the water, the windows tall enough to catch the last streaks of afternoon light. The table was simple set for 3. No name cards, no folded menus, just linen napkins polished silver and a quiet steadiness that didn't ask for anything in return. Grandpa arrived just before 5, arms full of rosemary and 2 bottles of cider. He took one look at the view and muttered, "Not bad for a girl who started with nothing but a sketch pad and grit." Clara laughed easy and open and told him to sit down before he dropped anything. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and sage. Clara had made the pie crusts from scratch. I'd helped peel apples earlier, the rhythm of the knife strangely comforting. The turkey rested on the counter, golden and warm. "I think you should carve," Clara said, handing me the knife. I hesitated, not out of fear, just surprise. I'd never been asked before. Grandpa was humming softly an old tune I remembered from summers on his porch. His foot tapped gently under the table. Clara poured cider into 3 mismatched glasses and raised hers with a quiet smile. We sat. We passed food. No one made speeches. No one performed joy. The air didn't strain to hold something it wasn't built for. It just held us. I carved the turkey slowly. The slices were uneven, but no one minded. Grandpa reached for a second helping before the first was finished. Clara refilled his glass. I caught her watching me once, eyes soft, not full of questions but gratitude. Later we lingered over pie and let the night stretch out. There was no tension in the silence, no need to fill every space. I looked at the table, at the faces around it. Every seat was filled, not out of duty, out of choice. As Clara stood to clear the plates, she brushed my shoulder and said, "You belong here." And for the first time in years, I believed it. I stayed behind to wash the dishes, listening to Grandpa and Clara talk about music and recipes and old roads they used to drive. When I dried my hands and stepped out onto the balcony, the city lights shimmered back like stars. I wrote it late one evening, sitting at Clara's kitchen table while the city glowed beneath the windows. The house was quiet, Grandpa asleep in the guest room, Clara reading on the couch, her glasses slipping down her nose. I didn't write to accuse. I didn't need to relive the years. I just needed to end them. Dear Victor, Rosalind, Colton, and May, I hope you're well. I wanted to say thank you for the roof you gave me, for the meals, for the space I filled in your home. It wasn't always easy, but it shaped me. I've found peace, not in the past, but ahead. I'm no longer waiting to be chosen by people who never saw me. I've chosen myself. You don't need to respond. This isn't an invitation, it's a farewell. Be well. Mira. I folded it, sealed it, and mailed it the next morning. As it slipped through the blue box's slot, something in me settled. Not triumph, just clarity. Weeks passed. Seattle began to feel like something more than temporary. I started working with Clara's design team, not as her daughter, but as a contract analyst. Evenings were quiet. My name wasn't yelled across the house anymore. It was said gently, like it belonged. Then, one afternoon, while Grandpa and I were planting herbs in the balcony pots, my phone buzzed. A message from May. "Can you help? Colton lost everything. Mom and Dad are struggling. No greeting, no warmth, just need." I stared at it for a few seconds, then pressed delete. The silence that followed felt clean. Grandpa looked over at me, saw the expression on my face, and said nothing until I set the phone down. "You've given them enough, kiddo," he said softly. "Now live." I reached for the rosemary and pressed it gently into the soil. His hands moved beside mine, steady and sure. The air smelled of earth and rain and the faintest trace of freedom.